This popped up yesterday, Spring 2020, with the title Virtual Meetings. Virtual. Are they trying to run sim games on us? Anyway, the IMF and the World Bank announced unprecedented debt cancellation program allegedly to address the COVID-19 pandemic on the eve of the spring meetings of the IMF and World Bank. Now, amid unprecedented coronavirus pandemic, it is said, the IMF, in partnership with the G20, well, I thought it was G7 or G6 or G5, used to be G48, I think it was at one point. And the World Bank has released an aggressive plan, they say, to immediately address this unprecedented global crisis. I guess some of these keyboards stuck on unprecedented. By cancelling all debts they are owed by any country that faces a moderate or high risk of debt distress before the coronavirus. And in a statement released yesterday, the executive board of the fund said it feels compelled to use the fund's influence in this moment to ensure that vulnerable countries are free to direct all public revenues at their disposal to stop the spread of this disease and mitigate the financial crisis. Only one problem with that. Because of the IMF and the World Bank, no country's got any money to do so. So, they declared themselves as the world's leading financial institution and went on. It is vital that we step in to guide the invisible hand, there's that term again, of the global market in the right direction. The fund acknowledges previous policies that impacted the basic needs of billions of the world's poor to the dictates of financial institutions' austerity policies, and that the unprecedented nature of the global pandemic demands a shift of the fund's policy priorities to stem the massive economic repercussions. On they go. We are humbled by this economic crisis and the role that we have played in prior to precipitating such a scenario. For years, the entire international financial system created by our Bretton Woods Charter has set up countries for the adoption of free market ideals. I think many of our members realise free market means something completely different to everybody else. By providing loans across the globe that no country could afford, we have helped countries spread their goods and in turn strengthen the bonds and livelihoods of everyday people, according to the statement. That's why over half of the planners are in poverty. They don't mention that. However, with more and more countries facing the challenge of a global pandemic, we decided to throw our massive weight, they have none, into this delicate job. And we are moving forward with a new process that will immediately cancel the debt of the 27 countries facing debt distress. Additionally, all 76 of the World Bank's International Development Association countries will receive full debt cancellation. All developing countries categorized either as middle-income countries or low-income countries who face high debt vulnerabilities will see a full cancellation of the debt. And in total, this process will apply to 111 countries. 111. These countries will receive full cancellation of all debts as they wrestle with the COVID-19 pandemic, and the board noted that this relief should help mitigate disruptions to the supply chains of essential commodities for consumption in the developed world, such as coffee and chocolate. I think people need food. Jackasses. That's not allowing for Kushner et al. To block said supplies. But there you go. Prevention of supply chain disruption is essential for timely delivery of medical supplies, including scarce personal protection equipment and medicines critical for developed countries as they fight the pandemic. Given the huge drop in commodity prices as a result of the crisis, countries that are economically dependent on fossil fuel revenues are experiencing the worst consequences of their economies crumble. For years, the Fund and other international financial institutions have advocated for extraction-based development regimes and policies that provide mechanisms for developing governments to turn their subsoil wealth into cash with the help of Western oil companies. Dear me. Yeah. I'm just going to stop this there. The IMF and the World Bank, along with the UN and other clown organisations, including the Bush Cartel in particular, have been planning for the last 5 years to have an asset-based currency with oil. So that's what they're talking about there. So you will have to extract all the oil and give a percentage to the IMF or the UN for so-called climate change. It's all in the words, they all give it away. You've just got to understand the background to it, because most people don't. So the fund acknowledged this history, noting that in developed countries around the world, the myth of fossil fuel-reliant wealth generation has become all too apparent. Dozens of international development organisations have expressed enthusiastic support for the fund's plan, while requesting that the fund and other international financial lenders take reparative action for the historic social and economic consequences of the burdensome debt levels. And the fund is announcing formal agreement with this position and is convening an international coalition to address this urgent matter. Oh dear. Well, what they're telling you is they've got no money. And whilst that may seem odd that they would cancel the debt, and it all sounds very nice with cancelling the debt, doesn't it? Except, listen closely to this. Not one country around the world had any debt to begin with. I'll repeat that again. Not one country around the world had any debt to begin with. The IMF, the World Bank, UN, and all the other clowns sold all the so-called debt, which was actually credit, to the trust. All of it. And the second reason that they are cancelling the debt is they have a mercenary collection agents who call in the debt and threaten countries if they don't pay the debt. Well, now they can't pay the mercenaries and so can't collect the debt. That's what's going on. And so collecting the debt now is more of an issue as they can't pay their mercenaries anymore. Isn't that what we said on this show a long time back? It is coming. Global fascism, which is right in your face currently, lockdown, was all created by Zionists, the same as communism. It's full in your face now. And unless we stand up like responsible adults and not cower in the corner of our homes like naughty children, the world you thought you knew has ended. it will not recover apart from one action that will resolve it all. And that involves the trust. Don't believe me? Fine, watch it all collapse. But one of the things that disturbs me more than most is the whole world is being held hostage on the words of one man, who is not even an expert on the subject he talks shit about. And in reality, there are no experts on this world. None. As every one of so-called experts have been educated with crap, with whole key missing pieces. Whether that's finance, government, banking, psychology, you name it. Medical in particular. Bill Gates is that man. Or the correct term, be ill from my vaccines gates. This man has publicly, several times now, said he wants to get rid of many humans on this planet. It's no longer in the realms of so-called conspiracy theory, which was a term that was thought up by the think tank clowns out of Virginia. It's all right out in public. He wants to get rid of us. But people just ignore it because, well, it's only the Africans or the Indians or the Chinese. Because that's the general attitude. But what if he designated your whole town, city or country? Is it only, well, it doesn't matter then? Let's put this into clear speech and thinking, shall we? He has publicly asked and declared he wants to kill numbers of us. And not one of the treasonous portal people challenged him in this stance. Not one. And to date, not one Prime Minister or President either. Bill the Lord Gates. And some will say, don't blaspheme our Lord. And I will say, he is acting exactly like the Lord of the book. Go and read your scriptures again about what the Lord did to humans in the past. It is exactly the same. Why? Same people, same program, and same entities is why. Why is he allowed to walk amongst us? Why are jackasses paying hundreds of dollars to happy clap this genocidal maniac in conferences? And not one person take umbrage? How little we value life today. It's shameful. And that has to change, and all the people must become accountable for their actions and make others accountable also. Silence does not work.